anyone out there find the concept of compound interest confusing? Especially if you're not into math. Seeing a formula like this, or hearing a term like interest on interest can be a real turnoff for some. And yet Einstein calls it the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it, those who don't pay it. In this video, I'm going to share 4 different ways of thinking about compound interest. It's September 1st and you have 1 penny. That penny doubles its value every day for 30 days. So on September 2nd, you'd have 2 pennies. The next day, it doubles again to 4 pennies and so on. Each day, you have twice as many pennies as you had the day before. On September 30th, would you rather have $1 million or the number of pennies you'd have from doubling them every day? How many pennies do you think you'd have in 30 days? Drum roll, please. 537 million pennies, or over $5 million. Of course, it's unreasonable to expect that anything will double its value every single day. The point is, compounding is all about consistency and time, even if you start off with a small amount. Samantha just graduated from high school. Her entire family, not just her parents, but her grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, the whole lot, chips in and gives Samantha $5,000 as a graduation gift. Sam is smart. She knows a thing or two about compound interest and the stock market, and decides to put the entire amount into a diverse stock market index fund like VTSAX. She knows that the stock market doesn't always go up, but annual returns over the last 100 years have averaged about 10%. If we assume they continue to average 10%, and Sam doesn't touch it until she's 65, in other words, she doesn't add to it or take away from it, don't touch, her $5,000 would grow to almost $441,000. Get this, if Sam decided to invest at age 25 instead of 18, in other words, she waits another 7 years, that same $5,000 would only be $226,000 when she turned 65. And if she delayed her investment until she was 30, it would only grow to about $140,000 at age 65. Delaying her investment just a few years makes a huge difference. The key takeaway? Start investing early and don't stop. By the way, if you haven't started yet, don't be discouraged. As one wise person once said, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The hockey stick curve. What progress is really like. Imagine you have an ice cube in a cold room. You can see your breath. The room temperature increases from 25 to 26 to 27 degrees. Crickets. The ice cube is still on the table. Then 28, 29, 30 degrees, still nothing. The temperature keeps increasing 1 degree at a time and the ice is still ice, until it reaches 32 degrees when the ice suddenly begins to melt. A 1 degree increase, seemingly no different from the increases before it, unlocks a transformation. Transformations and breakthrough moments often come about when countless tiny actions accumulate over time. This pattern shows up everywhere. For the first 5 years of its life, a bamboo tree can barely be seen as it builds up its roots underground. Then suddenly, it explodes 90 feet into the air in a matter of weeks. Those pennies feel like just pennies until an inflection point. The same is true of Sam's investment returns. A breakthrough is on the other side of consistent, tiny actions accumulating over time. Pascal isn't in great shape. He may even be a little overweight. His friend Derek has been trying to convince him to get into shape, so he bets Pascal that in 12 months he won't be able to finish a 26-mile marathon. At first he wasn't interested, but Derek sweetened the pot by betting him a nice sum of money. That was enough to finally get Pascal to take Derek up on his bet. Now, there are a lot of different ways he could approach his training, but consider these 2. Let's say he gets up at 5 a.m. the next morning, puts his running shoes on, gets on a treadmill, and struggles to run as far as he possibly can. In that case, he may be able to run 2 miles or 3 miles, or maybe even 5 miles or more if he's really determined. What kind of shape do you think he would be in after his first run? 2 words: not good. If he didn't injure himself, which is highly likely, he'll almost certainly be so sore he won't be running again for several days, if not weeks. What if instead he started off by walking, and every day or so he commits to improving his distance and time by 1%? That may not sound like much, but with a 1% improvement each day, over time he will be able to run a full marathon. Remember the story of the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady beats fast and inconsistent almost every time. That is the power of compounding, consistently stacking one small gain on top of the other. The thing about stacking is, you're not starting from scratch each time out. You're improving on top of the improvements from the day before. It's what the math geeks mean by interest on top of interest. Compound interest reminds us that progress, no matter how slow, is always worth the effort. It's a principle that governs all meaningful change. Small, consistent actions, when compounded over time, yield remarkable results in all aspects of life.